Hello, BookTube. Well, it's Friday, bright, blisteringly hot Friday here in Boston, and Friday is time for Friday Reads, one of my favorite BookTube rituals, where we pause in our forward moment and look at the reading that we're doing, the reading that we've just done, what we think about it, or the reading that we're planning on doing. And I usually use Friday Reads to show you some books that are on my immediate radar. That's what we're going to do today. We're going to look at a handful of books, talk about them a bit, as things that either in e-copy or in print copy I am looking to start working on, to start devouring. All of these things are things, most of them are things that I'll read more than once. This first one is a work of biography, and biography, of course, is my favorite kind of book. But biography has an endemic weakness, right, which is oversimplifying. I guess it's the weakness of any kind of genre. And there's no figure that brings it out worse than this. This is, and there was light. Abraham Lincoln and the American Struggle by John Meacham. This is biographer John Meacham's forthcoming book. I forget exactly when this comes out. I think it's an August release, but you can see the problems right away. Right? There is no American figure who is more prone to hagiography than Abraham Lincoln. Not even Martin Luther King. And this is a hagiographizing author. I mean, John Meacham has his selling points as a biographer, certainly. He is not a bad writer, but he is not critical of the figures that he has set out to like. And it makes his biographies, although very enjoyable reading experiences, deeply untrustworthy, deeply. And this, I mean, you've got, and there was light. I mean, that's an explicitly biblical invocation of Lincoln, who was, a politician. He was an elected politician. So Abraham Lincoln and the American Struggle seems to me to be this. I could be wrong. This author has pleasantly surprised me in the past, but this strikes me as one enormous, very Colonel Blimpishly contented bromide, is what this will be from front to back. This seems to me to be a book that John Meacham is not only writing with Joe Scarborough and Morning Joe in mind, but for Joe Scarborough and Morning Joe. That I'm going to write this book about Abraham Lincoln, who for all his faults, and can't we agree, just so that he can get that 5-minute spot in between segments where Mika Brzezinski is trying to read the cue cards and Joe Scarborough is going, and I'm just a humble country lawyer. Just the kabuki show that is the morning talk shows. This seems pitched for that. I doubt, in other words, that this will be a serious Lincoln biography or even a serious meditation on Lincoln. But Meacham is a big name, so I'm definitely going to read it. Wow, the iPad has completely malfunctioned. Let's see if we can recover it. There we go. All right, this next one is by Kyle Smith, and again, I am suspecting trouble on the horizon. This is Cult of the Dead, A Brief History of Christianity. Which seems like the book is sort of making trouble even in its title, even right on the cover, and I don't know what to make of that. I don't think I know this author. I'm always up for a new history of Christianity. I'm even up for a new rabble-rousing history of Christianity. There aren't enough of those. But obviously, Christianity itself is a lot more than a cult of the dead. So we'll have to see. We'll have to see, the tack this author takes. I don't remember the exact month this comes out, but I'm going to be on it anyway. Then this next one is something I think we've already seen on this channel. This is by Jeffrey DeLorme. It has a cover blurb from no less than Jane Goodall. And this is Deer Man, 7 years of living in the wild with deers. So this is a guy who gets to know deer in their own natural habitat and learns what they're like when they are not under the pressure of being hunted, when they are not under the weird pressures of captivity. And I think I have a print copy of this. That's probably where we came across it on this channel. And I'm wide open to it being terrific. I've read books like this. I mentioned Illumination in the Flatwoods, for instance, but Amanda does the exact same thing with a group of turkeys. seemingly intent on challenging his own reduction of what these animals are, and finding that once you do challenge those reductions, it turns out those reductions are myths. And that what you're talking about here is a complex, multifaceted society of complex, multifaceted beings. No big surprise to anybody who's ever spent time in the wild or spent time with non-human animals, whether it be dog or pig or horse or even cat. But I'm always up for another classic along those lines. Then this next one is a collectible thing. It looks like it's going to be beautiful. I can't wait to have a physical copy in my hand. This is The Fall of Numenor by J.R.R. Tolkien, with art by Alan Lee, with a big, sumptuous, full-color, brooding cover illustration. We saw last year this same kind of edition, this same set, only for the Silmarillion. Very much looking forward to this. This is the way, in my opinion, the way these books should have been issued to begin with. But this will be more expensive. It's a little more ornate. It's a bigger deal. Probably the print run will be smaller. And the publisher was probably right to think that if they put out The Children of Hurin or The Fall of Numenor as ordinary little hardcovers, they would get on the New York Times bestseller list, which they did. So I can see the wisdom in it. But these are the editions that I want of these kinds of books. I want these far more sumptuous editions. And this is coming out in the immediate future. Always, I mean, it's a collection of the... Who is the editor? It's not Christopher Tolkien. It's Brian Sibley. He brings together all of the Numenorian stuff from the various unpublished tales and the Silmarillion and appendices of whatnot, and makes a book out of it. And believe it or not, that actually does hold together. That's basically what the Silmarillion is. So very much looking forward to this. I will add it to my Tolkien. Then this next one is something that we've seen just a bit on this channel. We saw the article that was chipped off this block for The New Yorker. This is Annie Proulx, and her new book is nonfiction. It's Fen, Bog, and Swamp, A History of Wetlands. In an age of climate crisis, but also a strident call to save wetlands somehow, to reconstitute them somehow. And there on the cover is a classic example. I know wetlands very, very well. They can be pretty inhospitable to trek around and to trek over, especially with dogs. But it can be done. And boy, oh boy, do they yield wonders. Boy, oh boy, do they ever. They are weird and ultimately an incredibly beautiful biome. And here they get a great author writing about them, hoping that I get a chance to write about this. I'll write about it myself. But then this next one is a biography by Beverly Gage. Again, I think we've seen it on this channel, but this is her new biography of J. Edgar Hoover. There he is, Bubbles, on the cover there. And this will be... I always distrust subtitles like this and the making of the American Century. Same thing as I distrust the John Meacham subtitle. But I'll definitely take it for a new biography of Hoover. He was fascinating, and in this case, his tendrils reached into so many parts of society that you actually can make a case for him affecting the whole century. A lot of times when books say that so-and-so in the making of the American Century, whether it's Tip O'Neill or whoever, it's an overreach on the part of the author, but might not be in this case. A totally unsavory character. I imagine the author will find savory things to say. Then we have Douglas Brinkley. We've mentioned Douglas Brinkley before on this channel. This is his new book, Silent Spring Revolution. John Kennedy, Rachel Carson, Lyndon Johnson, Richard Nixon, and the Great Environmental Awakening. Which I think this is a book about Silent Spring. I think this is a book about how Rachel Carson's book changed the mentality of the country, which it certainly did. And led to a whole bunch of pioneering environmental legislation, the first of its kind in half a century, since Theodore Roosevelt. Much as it burns an old Nixon hater such as myself to say, some of that legislation, some of those key acts were put forward by Richard Nixon. For whatever twisted, religious reason. But I'm always interested in what this author has to say. He has sort of carved a niche for himself as a historian of environmentalists. I'll definitely take it. And then we have something far more up my alley. I mean, John F. Kennedy, makes that the last one partly a Steve book. This one does away with the partly. This is John Farrell, who's an author, a biographer, writer I really, really like. And his new book is a biography of Ted Kennedy, the Lion of the Senate. A liberal figure in the United States Senate for 50 years. It'll be a remarkable story. It'll be thrown into totally involuntary highlight by the fact that no political career like Kennedy's could exist anymore in America. Totally impossible. He was one of the last people to have such a career. I wonder if Farrell will make any hay out of that. He can either, I'm sure that he will notice it. Nothing gets past this author. But I'm wondering if he'll make any hay over it, or will he assume that if he does that, he'll lose the partisan customers. Even partisan customers, the people who are making it impossible for anyone to have a political career like Ted Kennedy's, might still not believe that about themselves, and they might still buy this book. I don't know what kind of tone the author will strike. Very interesting to see. I'm never going to let it pass. I'm never going to let such a thing go. Then this next one is something that I have been looking forward to for a very, very long time. I can't wait. It's right around the corner. It's right about ready to happen. This is the entry of the historian Bruce Catton into the Library of America, with a single Library of America volume that contains his Army of the Potomac trilogy, that ends with one of his greatest books, A Stillness at Appomattox. I couldn't be any happier about this. I'm currently doing a read-along of Never Call Retreat by Bruce Catton with Jordan Parsons. Never Call Retreat is the third volume in his Centennial History of the American Civil War, and ought to be a Library of America volume on its own. This should have been a 2-volume set. But I will definitely take this, absolutely. And if Bruce Catton can get into the Library of America, surely it's possible for Samuel Eliot Morison to get into the Library of America, and Bernard DeVoto. But I'm very happy about this. It's right around the corner now. So an e-file is never the same thing for something as pretty as Library of America. An e-copy is never quite the same thing, but I'll be eagerly awaiting the physical copy. Then we have... this is by M. Margaret McEwen. I don't know. I don't think I know that author. Now, this seems like a weird book. This is Citizen Justice, the environmental legacy of William O. Douglas, public advocate and conservation champion, and also Supreme Court Justice. That isn't even mentioned on the cover, maybe because at the very last minute, the people at the publisher realized that that is a sure way to make people hate this book. The Supreme Court, the United States Supreme Court, has never been more hated and distrusted than it is right now, for obvious reasons. And that's just going to get worse. They're just gearing up. Their next season, the next slate of decisions that comes down from them will be staggering. We'll have record numbers of people protesting in the streets. Protesting what? I do not know. The Supreme Court, the justices can't be fired. They can only be impeached. They won't be impeached by the Congress that will then be in session. And the only other thing you can do as a protest to the rulings of the Supreme Court is simply not to acknowledge them. Simply say, no, I'm in Massachusetts, and Massachusetts state law allows X, Y, or Z. I don't care what the Supreme Court says. And there isn't any structure to do that, and that would not get sanctioned even from the non-fascist wing of the United States federal government. So maybe that's the reason that the publisher just decided that Big Bill Douglas could not be called a Supreme Court justice on the cover of the book. But he was also a prolific author. And when I saw the listing for this book, I realized how many of the books that he's written that I have really loved have been nature books. I have quite a few of them here. A couple of them are in my little book room. They're so good. I have no idea who wrote them. I doubt severely that it was Justice Douglas, but it could have been, I suppose, in between morning bourbons. But a book about his environmental championship, that's fascinating enough to me. As I mentioned on this channel, I am, unfortunately, in 2022, I am something of a lifelong Supreme Court junkie. I used to love to read their rulings. I was that much of a geek. When the rulings came out, I would read them. And not only would I read them, but I would, with a couple of Supreme Court junkie friends of mine, I would parse who among their clerks had written the bulk of the decisions. Because justices usually don't. They'll put the finishing touches, the rhetorical flourish on something. But it's usually their clerks that do the writing. And you get to know their personalities. And if you are a Supreme Court junkie, a real diehard one, you follow those personalities as they move on. Those clerks are going to go on to be judges, then circuit judges, and then maybe Supreme Court justices. It happens all the time. Used to happen all the time before one arch-conservative, paleo-Christian fascist government spook organization, decided to start picking Supreme Court justices itself and leaving that out of the hands of any kind of federal vetting. The Federalist Society picks the Republican justices that are on the Supreme Court now. And there are only ever going to be Republican justices on the Supreme Court, so going forward, only new ones will be. I don't know how that happened, that a crypto-fascist, Christo-fascist society just was given control by 4 Republican presidents in a row, not one of whom won the popular vote, to just put these people on a position where they cannot be fired. But before all that was the case, I used to follow all of that. And I've read probably more by Justice Douglas than most people have, not only his books, but his decisions and his dissents, which are golden, and which he wrote, certainly, mostly himself. And so a book about an aspect of his life, that's going to have me, at word 1 anyway. I just hope it's good. Then we have, this is by Tyler Kepner, and this is a history, this is The Grandest Stage. It's a new history of the World Series. For those of you outside of America, you're going to say, what on earth is a World Series? It's an Americans only event that America decided to dub the World Series. And it's baseball. It's baseball, and I'm not the biggest fan in the world, but I love the design of this thing. It's not a grainy black and white photo, thank God. But also, I have read other books on the history of the World Series, and it's got some grand stories in it. So, baseball fan or no, I will definitely. What's the matter, baby? Oh, you're so hot. Here, come down. Come on, take it. Now, don't lean against me. Oh, baby, you can't lean against me. Oh, baby girl, that's just going to make you hotter. Here, go down all the way to the floor. There you go. Sorry, sorry, BookTube. It's the care and maintenance of a heat-sensitive dog. That's all I'm doing for the next 20 days. Is that. But anyway, as I was saying, I'm not the biggest baseball fan in the world. For that, you would have to turn to my Saturday cohort, Zach from the Brattle. But I'll definitely read this thing, absolutely. Then we have something that I am a big fan of. This is the American Revolution. Every ground, every blade of grass, every individual, every participant, every movement, everything. And this is a new study by Philip Thomas Tucker of Kings Mountain. An absolutely pivotal and militarily textbook encounter in 1780. There was a complete American victory. Just complete. Almost the entire, to the last man, opposing army was bagged or destroyed. And it's not well enough known. People don't, aside from Lexington and Concord and maybe Yorktown, most Americans don't know anything about the battles that won them their freedom from the greatest empire the world has ever seen. And Kings Mountain is great. It is a terrific story, just charged with personalities. And in the breakneck action of the battle itself, it's hold your breath time. So we'll see if this book does it justice. I've read other books on Kings Mountain, but I'll definitely read a new one. And then we have something from Oxford University Press to finish things up here, so I can tend to my little baby. And this is big. It's 1,200 pages long. It is Catnip for Steve. I know this list has been anyway, but that's what Friday Reads are, right? None of you are doing Friday Reads where you show me books that you don't have any interest in reading. I'm showing you things that I do. I'm showing you things that I'm interested in reading. Anything about a Supreme Court justice, of course, a couple of books on the Kennedys. And this this is catnip for Steve. This is a new Oxford annotated Mishnah, which will give the Hebrew Mishnah and then massive amounts of annotation, writing, supporting essays, all kinds of footnotes. Just a vast, vast undertaking. I'm hoping, in the part of me that dreams, I am hoping that now that this exists in the world, or will, I think this is coming out next month, that Oxford University Press will use this as the basis for, or even reprint this in a paperback as part of the Oxford World Classics series. I would love that if this were more generally available. I think this hardcover is fairly pricey. But I would love it if this came out as a general purpose paperback. This is so much, believe it or not, this is so much fun to read. the Mishnah anyway, even without annotations. The annotations are just going to make this a field day of exegesis and amazing amounts of argument and counter argument. Just amazing, just a feast. This is absolute catnip for Steve. So I'll finish with that. This huge brick of a thing that is, I think, 1,200 pages long of arguing with Scripture and finding minutia and little points and arguing about those as well. Arguing just about everything. Argumentation raised to just an art form. So there you go. There are some Friday reads on a boiling hot day. And of course, I'm eager to know what you're going to be reading this weekend and the upcoming week. I'm pretty sure that no matter where you are in the world, your upcoming week is going to be boiling hot. Which is not a coincidence. And it's not just a coincidence that the same giant air masses are affecting Europe, India, South America, North America. It's not a coincidence. It's catastrophic climate change. But reading will still go on, right? So I'd be curious to know what you're reading. I'm watching all the Friday Reads videos today. Maybe I'll not be commenting all of them, but I'm watching all of them and loving them. And this is mine. This is some of the books that I will be reading, a couple of them this weekend, and then most of them next week, or the week after that. Because some of them, like, for instance, the annotated Mishnah, are going to take a lot of time. I'm going to be working on them for a while. It's not like I'm going to read them once and then get a handle on them. I'm going to be working on them. And I love that. That's blissful work. So, but anyway, that is my Friday Reads for today. I'm going to sign off, but I'll be back soon. Thank you, BookTube.